Give me a little summary of what we're
Welcome back, everyone. Today's guest is Dereck Williams, founding partner of Gamma Group. Dereck, can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience what you do?
yeah, I'm Dereck Williams. I own and operate Gamma Group. We're a manufacturing consulting agency that specializes in helping companies navigate the tricky waters of aerospace defense, med device, automotive, and other certified industries with a heavy emphasis on aerospace and defense.
Okay. Dereck, you built Gamma around supporting aerospace defense and other certified industries. What trends in aerospace manufacturing make your services more critical today than 5 years ago?
Definitely an increased demand for compliance. When we talk about things, like quality management systems, CMMC, so cybersecurity, and just kind of trends and regulation in defense. Those can be tricky waters to navigate for people who, honestly, they're making parts or working in machine shops or other manufacturing companies because they like to make things, not because they necessarily like to, you know, ensure that compliance self checklists are fully updated and uploaded in the right registries.
10 years from now, when your ideal aerospace defense supplier ecosystem is running at peak maturity, what one operational capability will everyone say Gamma helped build that? Everyone will say Gamma helped build that.
I think everybody will say that Gamma helped streamline integrating these compliance systems into their existing manufacturing best practices. That's kind of our main focus, is to simplify these systems so that they occur naturally rather than add on additional checks and toll gates to a manufacturer.
Got you. Okay, so when you first saw the need for Gamma Group, what gap did you believe existed that wasn't being addressed?
Um, well, I mean, really, when I first got into consulting, I know that I was most happy when I was solving problems. And the
Hmm.
problems that seemed to recur were, how do we implement quality systems and stay compliant when we have a team of people who have other things to focus on? And how do
Okay.
we navigate all these controls that are thrust upon us that are, that we really didn't get into this business to do. So, solving those two problems were really the problems that drew me to this.
Okay. In supplier audits for aerospace firms, what are the most common hidden process leaks you find that firms don't anticipate?
Supplier audits, there can be a lot of things. I mean, some have just, abandoned process, and they kind of, go rogue over a period of time if they're not monitoring. But really, the low-hanging fruit stuff that we see all the time are gaps in training, gaps in awareness, and communication related gaps. Uh, what I tell everybody that we audit is, if you do two things right, if you do a really good job at contract review and a really good job at continual improvement, the rest of the stuff in the middle those gaps tend to close themselves. So I would say, while communication is the biggest obvious gap, it usually comes from one of those two, either not reviewing requirements early and clearly enough to disseminate that out, and not learning from your mistakes to continually improve.
Okay. How do certified industry clients struggle when scaling from a few parts per month to hundreds per month? Where do systems break down?
The big place where we see it break down is the the cost of operating. When you're a small company, you've got a small bank account, and when a client comes in and drops $100,000 or $1 million worth of orders on you, you have to carry the raw material costs, the labor costs, typically for at least 30 days, but more and more commonly closer to 90 or 120 days before you're getting paid. That's after you've invested the time to make the products, test them, and get them shipped out. So a large contract, while a $100,000 PO sounds great, knowing that you're not going to get paid for it for 4, 5, 6 months can be very challenging for companies as they try to scale.
Okay. Could you expand more on that? What you said about you said it takes 6 months for to get paid for employees to get paid.
Sure. So if a purchase order hits me today, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll just use a round number. If a $100,000 purchase order hits me today, 25% of that, maybe 30% of that is material. Another 30% of that is going to be labor, and then the remaining 30%, we'll call that profit, right? I can't do anything with the profit yet, right? I haven't invoiced. So I have to buy the material, uh, which I have to pay for in 30 days, right? I don't
Mm-hmm.
have 60, 90, 100. But then once the material arrives, then I get to start making product. Making that product might take 2 months. It might take 3 months to finish all the manufacturing. And then I send it out to the customer. So now I've got, let's say, 3 months of material that I've been sitting on, and then they put me on net 90 terms. I don't get
Mm-hmm.
paid for another 3 months. Now I'm 6 months in, before I see a penny from that $100,000 PO. So as a company, as a small company, I have to float that, right? And if I want to pursue, from $100,000 PO to $1 million worth of work, I have to cover all that backlogged cost first. I have to like
Mm-hmm.
make up for that first. So it becomes it becomes this perpetual kind of always in a hole sort of situation as you're trying to scale. Unless build ahead, and kind of hedge your bets, minimize your risk for a period of time on the front end so that you can handle that operating cost going in.
Understand, understand. As you expand Gamma Group, you mentioned more city, more resources. What internal process or coordination challenge has surprised you most?
Really expanding Gamma Group, with the availability of skilled talent who are interested in freelance type work for us. I mean, for scaling our business, that's the biggest challenge we see is finding people who want to be problem solvers full time.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a lot of companies out there that they can go punch a clock for 40 hours a week, and they'll have some problems roll across their desk, but it's not problems all day every day. I mean, we hire people who like problems, and finding
Mm-hmm.
people who like that, who are willing to work with multiple clients with multiple competing needs all the time. It's hard to find that right person.
How do you maintain service quality and knowledge consistency across multiple locations and teams in a consulting operations improvement business?
Well, we rely on our standards. So we internally have built standards for the types of services that we offer. So, for instance, if we're implementing a quality management system, not only do we have checklists to say, hey, these are all the elements that need to be implemented, but we have, qualitative and quantitative standards that we measure that against. The key is consistently providing service from one customer to the next, so that the industry, as you grow your brand, they get to understand what to expect of you.
Mhm. For an aerospace supplier trying to scale, would you say the biggest constraint is internal process discipline, external supply chain coordination, or regulatory certification control?
Certainly, the biggest cost is some of the regulatory certification control, especially with the introduction of CMMC. The cost of 3PAOs are quite outrageous, and then adapting to that. So from a cost perspective, it's that, but really the problems start to break down in internal controls and discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
You spend a bunch of time, money, and effort to build systems, and then if they're not maintained, for a short period of time, they tend to fall apart. And we use the term catastrophic improvement. I mean, people inherently want the system to be better, so they make decisions to do things well without seeing the full picture. And that improvement, the effort that they're trying to impose from a narrow scope of the organization has a ripple down effect, right? And me doing something different upstream that may be way better for my team on the front end, compounds as it gets further down the line, and more problems, get passed down that aren't necessarily seen from my perspective. So, trusting the system, I think, is hard for some people, like implementing a system and trusting it and relying on it. can be hard, which is why that communication thing is so key, right? Going back to an earlier comment is if you're not communicating why these things happen, that leads to those process breakdowns, and those things ultimately sink you.
Okay. If a client came to you and said, "We want to eliminate delays between quoting, production start, and delivery," what would you ask them first?
Well, I would ask them, I would want to know what their life cycle looks like between quoting and delivery. Are they using any system tools? Are they relying on any modern technology like AI for quoting or decision making, or is it all very manual? If it's manual, certainly let's see if there's a right tool to fit it. If it is automated, let's see if the automation is tuned finely enough for what they're trying to achieve.
Hmm.
Either way you can have an imbalance, right? If you apply too much automation, and you don't fully understand the systems, or you're not able to leverage them to their full potential, that can sink you just as bad as relying on somebody's notepad on their desk to have all the answers for what you're supposed to do.
Mm. Okay. So how do you see partnerships between consulting firms like yours, suppliers, OEMs, certification bodies evolving to reduce friction in aerospace manufacturing?
I mean, in a perfect world, more investment in infrastructure would occur. So, larger facilities that are more vertically integrated would be one way to start. But if that's not achievable, then you know, more companies, who can provide uh, more services and equipment to the manufacturing world more widely dispersed. There's concentrations of manufacturing in the U.S. California, the Bay Area and Southern California have a rich concentration of manufacturing, and they have the infrastructure to support. When you get into places that are more rural or more restrictive, the infrastructure for platers and material providers and tooling providers is spread thinner, and those tend to be the lower labor markets that everybody wants to buy from. But the problem with that is if they don't have the infrastructure, things can't happen immediately. Things can't happen overnight all the time without extensive cost. So I think that's really where the focus, as a nation, needs to be for manufacturing, so that all industries, aerospace and defense, and you know, silicon, or yeah, tech or automotive or anything can better thrive.
Mhm. Okay. So when choosing a new location or operation for Gamma, what criteria matter most? Talent availability, certified workforce, regional regulation, or client proximity?
Um, Regional regulation probably is more important for a lot of the aerospace and defense. Certainly, all of those things are important. If you can't get skilled people out to work, that's going to be a challenge, but you can subsidize some of that with internal training. But if your regulatory agencies are restricting everything you do too tight, then that can be a challenge as well. Same thing, we see that in California. There's taxes are high. Disposal of waste is very high. Lots of regulatory controls on how things are labeled and packaged and shipped and so on. And those don't tend to lighten up over time, whereas the training aspect, skilled workers, it hurts at first, but when you do get those skilled workers, and if you have a culture of keeping people, you can kind of overcome that bubble.
Okay. What one piece of advice would you give a mid-sized supplier in the aerospace business who's trying to jump from 50% utilization to 80% over the next 2 years?
Um, Really determine what level of automation is right for you. So if you know evaluate your mix, evaluate the types of products that you go through and how often you change over before you commit, either overcommit or undercommit to automation. It has a great potential to increase throughput and efficiency, unless it's applied at the wrong time. If you have high mix, low volume work, automation is almost never the right choice. If you have high volume, low mix, automation is, can be a very good choice, but then you have to focus on what's the right automation.
Okay. And lastly, when you say you help companies optimize Excel, which of those three do most firms skip too quickly?
I think most firms really want simplification, right?
Mm,
And that's why we lead with. They want these processes to be as easy as possible, because when we talk about regulatory controls and quality systems, I mean, if you read the standards in the plain text that they're written, they don't seem very simple, right? I mean, somebody who can read very well can go through those standards and oftentimes get lost in what the expectation is. So, with us being able to really focus on simplification and turning those standards into plain conversation, plain requirements that are easy to fulfill. I think our customers really lean on that and rely on that from us a lot.
all right. Well, everyone, this was Dereck Williams with Gamma Group. Thank you all for watching. Any any remarks you want to leave with the audience?
If you are in the manufacturing space, if you're looking to enter certified industries like aerospace, medical device, defense, any of that stuff, it can seem daunting. Looking at the Facebook feedback, everybody has a lot of things to say about how much work it's going to be and how hard it is and why you shouldn't do it. But the upside is substantial. Margins are generally significantly higher in these industries for the same base work effort. If you make a washer for Home Depot that costs 50 cents, that
Hmm.
aerospace washer might be $5. It still takes the same amount of effort to make the washer. So the systems around it are what they're paying for, and those systems aren't as complicated as people make them out to be.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording.